I am also quite excited to have seen that. Hopefully they will stick together through this long night and potentially away from the lions, but the lions might be very hungry because it's a very easy kill to get. Chris Rogue is interested to know if a crocodile would be interested in taking down quite a large buffalo. Well, of course you can get very, very big crocodiles that will be happy to try on something big, but mainly a crocodile will potentially go for a much younger looking buffalo that is down by the watering hole drinking. In my case, I've never experienced a young or a older buffalo being killed by a crocodile. I think that is quite something that's rare to see. But with a young buffalo, of course, that is very, very common to see that a crocodile will kill. If anything is hanging on the outskirts of the water and the crocodile can get to. Did you see that little bit of interaction between the buffalo there and the heron? It was very cool to see that. Look how he struts in the water there. Oof. So that was a sudden run from the buffalo. It looks like they're looking up there. There's a number of them are looking up the hill there. Potentially they've seen the lions. Yes, I'm sure they have. Yeah, they have, because they're now moving towards. Look at how they're sniffing the air there. More than sure the whole herd is now looked up in that position. Potentially we might see something a little bit more. Look, yes, look, they're all still looking there. They've hunched up. Is there something there? This is fascinating to have seen that behavior. We knew the lions were close by. We saw them looking very stressed out there. The one is still looking out into the distance now. Let's let go of that gaze. But did you see how they suddenly just started to run up the hill there? They must have caught scent or caught visual of those lions. So we'll let these buffalo move up the hill and cross over that dam wall, because we won't be able to cross over there until they've moved off. And then we'll go and investigate the area and see what they might be. Potentially those lions are trailing on the buffalo. So while we get ready to investigate what might be happening here at the watering hole still, let's go and see how Jamie's doing. I think she's on Arathusa, trailing around Arathusa.
While Sam investigates whatever's happening with those buffalo at the moment, and I'm fairly certain the smell of lion must be upsetting them profoundly. We know that the Mkahumas were around that area this morning, and we know that that female spent quite a few days in that particular area, so that's probably what's got them so on edge. In the meantime, I'm somewhere, oh wonderful, I know where I am. I know exactly where I am, on Arathusa. Things were starting to look a little bit desperate there for a moment. But it's okay, because I figured out where we are. We're at the back of Red Dam. Woo! I had this horrible, horrible feeling. It's always this little corner of Arathusa that tends to confuse me profoundly. And I just have this awful feeling that I was trespassing somewhere where I most definitely shouldn't be. What we're doing is we're currently on the lookout for the Mangeni Pride, or also known as the Salala Breakaway Pride. And from what I can tell, it's just the sub-adults of this particular group that are around here. So those are the lions that we are looking for. And it's just a matter of figuring out where they've gone. They've finished off the carcass that they were on. I think it was a buffalo. And they've gone somewhere. They might have gone for a drink. So we're going to go check Red Dam now, see if they're anywhere around there. Otherwise, we're going to loop back to the area where they were last seen. This road's changed a little bit. Up we go. That's one of the reasons for the multitude of vultures that we've seen in the area, which we will keep looking for in the trees as we turn around and go the other way. Yeah, we'll just keep looking at the trees for now. The worst place to have to turn around possible, but we're definitely going to check another road. And James Richards, you were wondering if baby animals like baby hippos ever get a little bit of a fright when they first experience the sort of personal space invasion that is an oxpecker landing upon them. And the answer is, I don't know. Maybe they do. Maybe it is a really peculiar experience. And of course, oh, bumpy, bumpy. Sorry, everybody. Sorry, Dave, throwing you about at the back there. Leaving Rebecca at Red Dam. Nope, she's still clinging onto the back. So baby animals take a lot of their cues from their mothers. So whether or not they get particularly scared by an experience like that, maybe they just look at the way that their mothers respond to that kind of treatment and take the cue from that. I don't think that they do, but it's interesting because an animal like an elephant with its trunk is completely intolerant of the presence of oxpeckers. Elephants do not, absolutely do not, allow oxpeckers to sit on them. So what is it about them that deters or that creates that personality that won't accept it? Whereas for the other animals, they're perfectly comfortable with it. And as we saw with that baby hippo from a very young age, have to find themselves getting used to that kind of presence. Honestly, I don't have an answer to those questions. I'm just wondering about it. Okie dokie. Let's figure out where we plan to go from here. I mean, as a human being, I think I would be exceptionally uncomfortable with an oxpecker hopping around on me. Maybe picking off, I mean, look, I've got a finger and thumbs. Well, I've got fingers and a thumb. So I don't need oxpeckers around, and they certainly hopefully wouldn't find much to snack on. But as a human being, and primates certainly don't ever allow them, but that's because they can do the job themselves. Hello, Impala. I hope you're all working on your impala rutting imitations. Why are you alarm calling at me? Or are you alarm calling at me? Yes, no? That harsh bah sound. There's a young impala at the back making alarm calls, but I don't think... Sometimes, every now and again, especially during rutting period where they are so on edge, being chased and harassed by the males, sometimes they do alarm call for no good reason. And it's only when several members of the herd start alarm calling that they will really start to, or that you should really start looking for something like a leopard or a lion. Speaking of lions, I don't want to delay for too long. I want to keep going and see if we can't figure out where our lions are. I'm so excited to see a new pride, one that I haven't seen before. I'm just wondering if they're not walking past here. But the rest of the impala not really showing much in the way of alarm. I'm just laughing because that one impala who's alarm calling has got laryngitis or something. It's very high-pitched. Bah! unusual alarm call sound. It's not quite, but maybe lost its voice from all of the calling during the rut, or strained its vocal cords. But that's a very peculiar impala alarm call. What do you look, no, hold on, what are they looking at? They're all looking away from us now. It'd be nice if a leopard came wandering through. Not all of them showing signs of alertness, but sometimes one impala is a little bit brighter than the others, a bit more aware of what's going on. Let's just sit here for the moment and watch their behavior, see if the rest of them catch on. I don't think they're going to, though. But Teresa, I like your theory. Teresa's got a theory as to why an elephant won't accept oxpeckers whilst others will. And she says, well, since the other animals, or since elephants don't have fur, perhaps they can't feel it, or perhaps they do feel it more acutely than the animals with fur, so it bugs them more than it might an impala. It's a good theory, not bad at all, except hippo. Although I suppose a hippo would have a really hard time dislodging an oxpecker. And rhino as well, they also carry oxpeckers on them with a minimal degree of fuss. These impala are on edge, but that one is still alarm calling. It's not a rutting sound, that's an alarm call. What has this one impala seen that the others haven't? Let's just go see if we can't get a different view from around the corner. You never know, we might have chosen or had a fortuitous route chosen for us this afternoon. I want to find the one that's calling and I want to see where it's looking. If it's looking at me, then it's a twit. See if we can't zoom in at the back there, Dave, see if they're not. Impala male doesn't seem terribly concerned, but then again, at this time of year, they never do. They usually have other things on their mind, which is why Karula, for example, was able to take advantage of that one male. A very large prey choice for a female of Karula's size. But with their level of distraction. What, Impala?
Yeah, there's a flooding was just gone into Moya's meal.
Sounds as though a female leopard has just crossed into Djuma from around Simbambili. I don't think that my radio will work well enough to communicate that across, but quite possibly James might be interested in that. I think James was out on tracking team. Unfortunately I couldn't hear exactly where the leopard crossed, but they've just called in that she's crossed in. And I'm going to try and get that message through to James. While I do, let's head back across to Sam, who's been far more successful than I have this afternoon.
So we have managed to relocate on the lines that are north of the dam. So what a scene has played out for us this afternoon. We saw that huge buffalo herd that must have only crossed to the watering hole here, maybe 50 meters just to the west of these lines that are here. And these lions didn't want to get anything to eat, so they've just lay in the thicket. And when we saw those buffalo get up and start smelling the air there, they were definitely smelling these lions. So that was an incredible sighting to see those buffalo seeing those lions in the thicket there. And we are now with the pride. So there's just two here. There's another two that we're not visible. They're in the thicket. So we can just see these two lionesses lying down in front of us. And one of them did get up and it looked like it was about to go drink some water from the watering hole, but then turned around and came back. So a very, very exciting afternoon, I can tell you that. Oh, here comes one of the females. Yes, isn't she beautiful? Yeah, she's gonna make contact. They are very, very social animals. Perfect. Steph, yes, these are the Nkuhumas. So we have just relocated on the Nkuhuma Pride, which is the only pride that I've seen since I've been working here with Wild Earth. And they are the pride where one of them looks and seems to be fairly pregnant. Oh wow, there goes that heron that we saw flying, or sitting by the watering hole, and now it's flying in the distance there. Great filming from Brian. Well done, Brian. And here it comes again. Oh no, it's about to land. So this is the only pride that I've seen, and one of them is thought to have been pregnant, and we haven't seen her yet. I'm not so sure where she is at the moment, but it's nice to see that the whole pride's here. And we've seen this pride here quite a few times now. I think I've actually watched the Nkuhumas walking through Buffelshoek, this area, probably about 3 or 4 times now. So we're now spending another afternoon with the Nkuhumas, very, very close to our property, so it's great to spend some time with them. And they do look fairly full, so they're maybe a mile away from the lions at the moment, so they weren't interested in getting something to eat by the watering hole. And there must have been, I mean, that was that small calf that was on its own on the side there. Do you remember that calf that was standing on the side of the watering hole? That could have been a very, very easy kill for one of these lionesses. So she was in quite a lot of danger. All the lions getting up. Cat and Tampa's noticed some black spots on one of the females on the backs and asking if those could be ticks. Well, we can see quite a few flies on the back there, but those could very well be ticks. And I'm pretty sure they are ticks, because you can even see the flies getting up on top of those ticks there. Maybe trying to collect whatever is being left from the ticks as they suck the blood of this lion. I'm just going to get binoculars out and have an even closer look. Kimmy is interested in taking screenshots of some of the female lionesses and putting it up on her Facebook page and then sharing it for Safari Live. Kimmy, we encourage this with all our viewers. You know, the experience that we are having out here in the bush is just as much your experience as it is mine. And so the more that we learn about these animals and what they're doing out here, it's just the better the experience will become. So we encourage every single viewer to get involved in any way that they can. There's no limitations. We highly, highly encourage that. Everything that we do out here is a shared experience that we have. So Belly the backpacker would like to know, is it the same kind of, is it the same as telling the difference of a leopard with the spot pattern with the lion? Yes, it is possible, but it's just a lot harder. You know, the leopard, it's much easier to tell the difference. Lions, it's much, much harder. So you really have to look for the detail in the different lionesses to tell them apart. And what some people will do is they'll have a look at the teeth, and they'll see like maybe that there's a broken tooth they'll see maybe on the nose that one of them is a lot pinker than the other ones, and that is often a sign of maturity when we look at the pink of a nose of a lion. So that cannot always be the best way of telling by looking at the pink nose, because often that will lose that pinkness and go black as the lioness gets older. And of course there will be scars over fights, there will be all sorts of different signs that the lioness will pick up, individual characteristics of the lion that we will then be able to distinguish from the other. So we were sitting with the Birminghams the other night, and I was trying to look at the difference between the 4 Birminghams, and I made a few notes. It is very, very hard, and it takes a very patient and good listener and watcher of each individual to understand each individual. So I'm starting to get to know them slowly but surely. I know Spotted Nose quite well, since I've seen her the most since I've been here with WildEarth. She's the one that looks fairly pregnant. So, still sitting in this beautiful scene here with these lionesses. These clouds are creating such an incredible atmosphere to our drive this afternoon. So Robin's asking more about the pregnant lion, and I've been studying and reading up on pregnant lions since I found her, and from what I've read and listened to from some of the other guides is that the lioness will move off towards an area where she'll be able to have her cubs in quietness, and then she'll only reintroduce the cubs after 6 weeks as they grow up. So it's around 6 weeks, that's the general norm. So the chances are that Spotted Nose, who is quite pregnant, is sitting up or lying down in one of the thickets around Buffelshoek Dam and waiting to give birth to those cubs. And the pride is just sticking around, maybe just to give her some company while she goes through this process. I'm sure they'll probably help her with feeds. If they kill something, they'll probably share some of the feed with her. I'm not too sure what that situation might look like as it unfolds, but we are going to be shortly finding out how it all works. And it's very important to note that every single experience and observation that we make in the bush will always be different. These lions might act very, very differently to the lions that we see in the Okavango Delta, or lions we even see close to us in the Timbavati. We can only make general observations. Jennifer said that scars and head shape are quite good ways in which we could tell the difference. That's exactly right, Jennifer. You can have a look at the different scars on the lions, as well as the size of the head, to distinguish a little bit more about these lions. And you also get to know personalities a bit better. And this one over here seems to be very, very social. The other ones, a little bit more active than the other two that we can see at the moment. I think there's another one lying up in the thicket somewhere. One's rolling around there. That could very well be Spotted Nose. So one of the lionesses has got up and has got back down. Have a look now. Ooh. Have a look at those teats. The nipples there on the lioness, they're looking very, very large. This could very well be spotted nose over here. Look at the size of that stomach. It's much more enlarged than I can see on any of the other females. They've also become a lot more darker and blacker than the others. So this is interesting to see that. We noticed that straight away when we looked at her as she lay down. It's so cool to see them all lying with their arms resting on each other. Shape of paw compared to that of the leopard we saw a little bit earlier. So a very cool afternoon to be able to study some of the cats, learn a little bit more about them and see what characteristics each of them have. I just thought I'd show you also on this chart that I have between the leopard and the lion. So a leopard's had, so this thing has been a very, very helpful thing for me over the last few weeks, and you can see here the leopard is over there, and it gets from around 7 to 9.5 centimeters. So this is my ruler where I go and track. So 7 to 9.5 centimeters is the leopard, and the female leopard will be considerably smaller to that of the male. But have a look at this male lion track over here, quite a lot bigger. So it is 13 to 16 centimeters big. But just before we link through to Jamie, who has got something very exciting to see, remember that there's 3 lobes and there's 3 lobes, so don't get it wrong. Have a look at your tracking book. Let's go and see how Jamie's doing.
Thank goodness Jamie has something very exciting. It has been one of the most traumatic searches for lions I have gone through in recent days. And I'll explain why to you in a second, but let's start by just saying, yay! We have one of the Mangen lions lying up in the shade, sporting one very full belly. And I've just stopped here so I could very briefly show you where the kill site initially was. Patch of churned up mud and dirt and stomach contents. Apparently they had a buffalo kill. So it's all around here. And let's reposition and see if we can't get a closer look at some new lions to us. And while we do, and keep our head turned, while we do, Kimmy, you were asking if I have ever been attacked by anything whilst in a vehicle, and the answer is by far and away the thing that attacks me most whilst I am in a vehicle is off-road branches. And luckily for me, the smack to the face that I just took was caught in slow motion, or can be replayed to you in slow motion by the Final Control girls. So let's just have a look and see what hit me in the face. To say, that was really sore. So my left eye is now very swollen, and that is, oh, there's a carcass there. I didn't mean to park so on top of it. Whoopsie daisy. I'm forgiven though, because I can't see out of my left eye. I can, just. There's the buffalo carcass. Pretty much all eaten away, hardly anything left. Just a little bit of the face still around. And as usual, they've left most of the limbs. And there we have one very, very full sub-adult female. Now, gator bait, as we look at this incredibly large lioness and my poor swollen eyeball, which is actually getting more painful by the moment. Gator bait was wondering how lions stay in such good physical shape when They don't do any exercise. In fact, they spend most of their time sleeping with only short bursts of activity. Do you know, it's funny you should ask that. It's a really good question because it's one that I've asked myself. Isn't she beautiful, by the way? It's one that I asked myself many years ago when I was working with a cheetah that had been taken off a farm. And she couldn't be released straight away because very often what cheetah will do, if they don't go through what's known as a soft release process, they escape and they go straight back where they came from. So she was put in a boma for 3 months, in other words, a small fenced area. And I asked the vet who was treating her whether or not she wouldn't become exceptionally unfit from that experience. And his answer was that their muscle design is completely different from ours. So they've got actually, you think of a fit athletic lion, you sort of think of as being really, really having muscles of steel. But in fact, their muscles are really floppy to the touch. They're designed differently to ours. They're built and evolved for bursts of speed and then huge amounts of relaxation. And a lion, if it exerts itself too much, will actually overheat. And they're very, very poorly adapted for being able to Sorry guys, I've just been interrupted by an update on the Game Drive channel. And it seems as though, because I've just been wondering where the rest of the 9 promised lions were, most of them have got up and gone for a drink, and this lovely lady has been left to guard the carcass. But yes, a lion is very poorly adapted for its body temperature to go up more than about 1.5 degrees. And after that, they start to overheat. And it's one of the ways in which lions have evolved alongside humans, and basically to not be in competition with us. So we are the dominant daytime predator, they are the dominant nighttime predator. Now, where I've parked myself is completely wrong, unfortunately, because I didn't see the carcass because of the blinding of my left eye due to the impact of the branch. Because obviously now if she wants to come and feed, she's going to feel incredibly uncomfortable. So I'm just going to reposition. I can't stay here. Not fair on her. I didn't mean to do it. But we're just going to back away and reposition ourselves. Now, this is the very first time I have ever seen these lions, and a first time for many of you as well. So Astrolina, oh no, now the antenna's coming from my other eye. This is tragic. This is terrible. Stop attacking me. Astrolina, you are absolutely right. You say you don't know which lions you're watching, and could you have a bit of a background on them? And let me just scoot past these obstacles. And I shall tell you a little bit about the Mangeni pride and their incredible history. Here we go. Hello, gorgeous. Hello, lovely lady. This is a sub-adult. So Astrolina, the Mangeni pride, from what I've been able to find out, are also known as the Tsalala breakaway pride. Now we have to port ourselves back to 2010 in the reign of the Great Mapocho Coalition, that famous coalition of 6 male lions. And in 2010, in Londolozi and a lot of the sort of central part of the Sabi Sands, Djuma, Arathusa included. In 2010, it was a time of great change. It was the time when the Majingilan coalition of male lions stepped in. And this is where we go back to the famous story. And I must thank James Tyrrell for this history that I'm providing you with now. He was working at Londolozi, as he still is during this time. And the Majingilanis came in, they kicked out the Mapokos, ultimately killing the last of them, and they set out to take over the prides that the Mapocho males were dominant over. What that meant for the Tsalala pride, who had some young sub-adults, that they were at huge risk, much like the time when the Birmingham boys took over and the poor Nkuhuma females found themselves in such a quandary. Now the famous tailless lion, Ness, of the Tsalala pride, not the one that we've seen, or one that is now deceased, her mother, decided that in order to keep her sub-adults safe, she was going to take them away. So she took a group of sub-adult females away, and they disappeared, hardly ever seen, for a considerable period of time, right up until the point that the sub-adults grew up and became old enough to mate with the Majingilani males who had now established themselves in that territory. And thus, a completely separate new pride was born, known as the Tsalala breakaways or the Mangeni pride. Now, from what I know of the sub-adults, this is now, bearing in mind this was sort of 2010 to 2014, the young sub-adults then grew up to have their cubs of their own, and unless I am very much mistaken, we might be out by a generation, but unless I am very much mistaken, these sub-adults are the cubs of the sub-adults that tailless lioness rescued from the Majingilan males. So that is who we're looking at the moment, and from what I understand, there are three sub-adult males and 6 sub-adult females such as this one. Now, if that information is correct, or if any of you have anything further to add, I know that some of you, and Angie and Kachino, John and Blair, I'm thinking sort of along your lines, but I know that there are lots. I don't mean to insult anyone by forgetting anyone. I'm just throwing out some names. I know that you know the lions of the Sabi Sands and you monitor them, so if you have any further information that you would like to share with me, I would love to hear it. And you know the routes, but hashtag Safari Live on Twitter or email to question@wildearth.tv. Let me know if you have any further information you'd like to offer. As to why they're here, away from Londolozi, well, your guess is as good as mine. What has happened that sent the Matimba males scurrying to Simbambili, along with the Tsalala breakaways, and in fact the Tsalalas, who are just to the south of the Arathusa airstrip, just to the south of our boundary? What on earth is going on in that southern portion? Interesting questions and some shifting line dynamics. In the meantime, back to our settled line dynamics, or at least settled for now, our lovely pregnant Nkuhuma lionesses.
And so you move from one pride that is on Arathusa to the next, which is our lovely Nkuhuma pride, just in front of us here. And you can see what looks to be the very, very pregnant female just in front there. The big, there we can see the big stomach. So cool to see them lying next to each other, and I'm very, very happy to hear that Jamie's with the Mangen pride. I used to see the Mangen pride when I was at Londolozi, and I truly, truly enjoyed seeing them. So I haven't seen them for about 2 years yet, and they were young cubs when I was at Londolozi, so it's 2 years on now, and they will be sub-adults. So interested to see what they are looking like at this present moment. Deborah, armchair traveller, said that she thought she saw something moving in the stomach of this, what looks to be the very, very pregnant female. Well, let's sit in frame for a few seconds, Deborah, to see if we can see a kick or two ourselves. Maybe we might be able to see that. Can't say I've seen anything quite significant, but I haven't been staring at her stomach. So we are having a good look now. This could be quite interesting to see. It's very, very special to spend time with a pregnant female. Darlene from New Hampshire is very excited to see what might come of these cubs in the future, as am I. Darlene, I've never seen young cubs. I've only seen about 3-4-year-old, which were the Mungen, from the Mungen Pride on Lozi. So I've never seen a birth of cubs, and then to see the interaction between them, which you are quite excited to see. It's going to be fascinating, and it's going to be live, and we're going to learn more about the species and learn more about how cubs are raised in the wild. And to share that with thousands of people is a very, very special thing. And in terms of the conservation and the love for these animals, that's what they need. They need deep experiences and deep learning through just experiencing every single day of life. So it's going to be fascinating to watch the development of this female as she gives birth to the cubs over the coming months, or the coming weeks rather, because I've been here a few times and I've seen her and she's looked very, very uncomfortable. And at the moment she looks fairly tired and sleepy. Debbie Armchair Travel says that she can quite clearly see some knockabouts in the stomach, which I haven't left my eyes from since I was looking there, and I haven't quite seen anything yet. But what we can see is that she is most definitely pregnant, because on the other females I can't see suckle marks as prominent as that. If we look at the stomach of one of the other lionesses there, but they do look full, and they do look like they've eaten. That's potentially why they weren't interested in having a look at one of those buffaloes as they moved down towards the watering hole. That could have been very, very interesting to see if they had made a kill while we were alive. It would have been awesome. Sitting on the other side of the watering hole looking at the grey heron and the hippo and all the beautiful things at the watering hole. Sarah is commenting on how sweet it is to see these these lionesses lying next to each other and putting their paws over one another. So it is really cool to see this. It's special to see when you find the lionesses and lions in general, because they are very social cats, and how they work together as a team, and how they are very affectionate of one another, and how they always are trying to strengthen the relationship between one another, because that's going to serve them the best interest in the future. Ryan's just zoomed up on the paw over there. You can see where the retractable claws would come out of this lioness. I'd love to see those claws coming out. Sheaths. Very, very big. I can see why someone made a little mistake of a lion cub to the size of one of these paws, because they are not small paws, they are quite big. Probably, yeah, as I said, 12 to 13 centimeters. Paul is interested in learning a little bit more of the social dynamics of the lion prides and how they are interacting with each other. Paul, it is a fascinating study, learning a little bit more how lions interact with each other within a landscape, and learning how the Mungen pride, the sub-adults, so the youngsters that will be leaving their mothers at around 1.5 years, they'll go off, especially the males. The females mainly generally stick to the prides, but the young male sub-adults will leave and they'll go search for new terrain, a new land to conquer and have territory on. So that's going to upset all sorts of things out here in the bush. It's going to upset mainly, obviously, the lion dynamics, and that's going to change things. So having the Mungen pride so far north that they are now, I've never seen them, and Jamie said this is the first time that she's experienced the Mungen sub-adults coming up here. So Paul, it's going to play a huge influence to the north here. It's going to have a big ripple effect, and I'm sure this pride will feel it at some stage whether or not it'll be in the next couple of days or the next weeks. But that will also influence the male coalitions that are in the area. So the coalitions that are here, the Birminghams, will probably want to mate with those, with that pride that's coming up here, with the Mangane pride, and so we might just be seeing some interesting behavior that goes on around here. But it's fascinating to learn more about how even the top predator, which is the lion, and how that might ripple effect on all the different, the web of life out here, the interconnected ecosystem. As if you can imagine, everything is very, very deeply interconnected, and when you start changing some of the fine tunings of it, it's going to have ripple effects on all sorts of life, not just the lions. Leopards will be impacted, and therefore it will shake the herbivores. Chris Rogue is commenting on looking forward to seeing the lion cubs get up and start trying to take on some of the older responsibilities, such as roaring, and how cute that might look. Because I'm also fascinated to see how that's going to turn out, and seeing a squealing little lion trying to roar. That's going to be very cool to watch that. Hopefully in the next couple weeks to months we'll be able to experience that often here on Djuma. So we are very excited. We've just had leopard cubs. I mean, we were sitting this afternoon and this morning with Karula. Yesterday we were with Karula and her cubs, and we went through to go look for Karula and the youngsters, but the youngsters didn't seem to have been there. It was just Karula that was up in a tree. So I still haven't experienced the cubs of Karula that much. I'm looking forward to having a few encounters with those beautiful little leopard cubs. I know that I'll have my time. I'm thoroughly looking forward to the beautiful little cubs that come out of these lions in the future. It's going to be fantastic to experience them. And I truly believe, the more that we have these deep experiences with the natural world, the more that we'll understand them better and have a better understanding of all of life centered, and understand how each individual within the web of life is influencing one another. I mean, that's one of the main reasons I wanted to take this job with WildEarth, is I know that deep experiences with the natural world will help me become a little bit more interconnected with some of the genius that's going on this planet. So there's no different sitting here with these lions and learning from them as it is learning about the stars that will be coming out in just a few minutes. Look at all those flies that are flying around this lioness's ear. Lynn would like to know, what is the gestation period of a lion? It's around about 3 months. So that's the similar gestation to that of a leopard. So they could have been probably around, I would say, 2.5 months pregnant, 2.5 to 3, this lioness that we're seeing over here. But I wouldn't know. I haven't seen any of these females mating at all. I only arrived about a month ago. Brian, has these females been mating with the Birminghams quite often? So there's been a lot of action between the Nkuhumas and the Birminghams that have been around here over the last few months. So I'm sure, well, more than sure, that the Birminghams are the fathers of these lions. For if they weren't, those Birminghams would kill any cubs that came. And the Nkuhumas sit in the territory of the Birminghams. Doodle asked a a very good question around, the possibility of seeing the lion cubs compared to seeing the leopard cubs, and what are the zoning kind of regulations around that. And it's very different with lions. With leopard cubs, it's much harder for us to experience a leopard cub as it is to experience a lion cub, because often when the lions do come out of their dens with their cubs, and they'll go into a very deep thicket that we most of the time won't be able to fall into. But after 6 weeks or so, those cubs will be out with the pride and moving around and walking on the roads, and it's much easier to view lion cubs as it is to view those leopard cubs, purely because they are at the top of the food chain, and they don't have as much risk as what those leopard cubs do. And while we sit with these beautiful Nkuhuma ladies, let's go and see how the Mangeni pride is doing with Jamie.
Just been sitting completely engrossed in the Stevenson Hamilton book that I spoke about a couple of days ago, the one that I acquired from my grandfather after he passed away, and one that was written in 1945 in Skukuza, the capital essentially of the Kruger National Park. And I've been enjoying some of his descriptions of lions. I'm looking for a nice extract to read for you. It seems as though they definitely had trouble with lions climbing out, or not lions, with guests climbing out of their vehicles in the Kruger National Park, even around the early 1940s, a problem that continues on even today. Our lioness, with her full belly, has barely moved. She really does have an enormously round belly. Looks as though it's been a while since she ate, though. If you can sort of see what I mean, she has that lanky, sub-adult look. Around that full belly, she actually looks quite thin. But perfectly relaxed and enjoying her evening. We find ourselves with a very interesting, I'm not going to read you any extracts for now, just because we do have a very interesting discussion to have about what impacts the current lion dynamics are going to have. And Kat in Tampa, you were wondering, would this pride, oh, big stretch, let me get us a little bit more light. You were wondering, would this pride be competition or compete with the Nkuhumas or fight with the Nkuhumas? And would the Birmingham boys mate with them? So the answer is yes, absolutely. The Nkuhumas would be terribly unimpressed to find them in what is essentially part of their home range, but only just. And these lions seem to be skirting, as the Tsalalas did, the original Tsalala pride with the tailless lioness's daughter, Bibi's daughter, that we saw a couple of months ago. They've sort of been skirting the no man's land, as the Tsalalas did when the Matimbas first entered Londolozis. Now the Matimbas at this point have fathered several cubs, and it's interesting to see these sub-adults moving off on their own. Would they mate with the Birmingham boys? If they were in estrus, yes, they would. The females are not, despite popular perception, they are not loyal to the males that control their home range or their territory. There's a lot of research coming to light now that seems to suggest that the fathers of cubs are not always the dominant males of that area, and quite often are unknown or show unknown DNA samples returned after testing. So lionesses are clever things, just like leopardesses are clever things, and will choose to mate with as many as males as possible whenever they can, whenever they're in estrus, as a way of essentially ensuring the increased chances of safe raising of cubs. Now, the one thing that made the Mangeni pride quite famous or quite extraordinary was that the sub-adult females, the tailless lioness, after her daughters were grown, or they can't all have been her daughters, but after the young lionesses that she rescued from the Mjingilani males, and when she moved off, they grew to adulthood. Bibi returned to the Tsalala pride, but the young lionesses did not. And yet they managed to raise their cubs to adulthood with a 90% success rate. Bearing in mind, of course, that the average mortality rate for a lion cub under a year old is 50%. They demonstrated quite incredible, that's a new word. I think it's quite incredible, an incredible success in the raising of their cubs and the natural mothering instinct. And we had a long discussion about this at Fireside Chat yesterday, about what makes a good animal mother and what does not. Personally, I have no idea. But yes, they would mate with the Birmingham boys. I also don't think that we fully know how the lion dynamics will continue to play out in the future. I couldn't even begin to guess. And speaking of the incredibly distinctive tailless lioness, oh my goodness, I'm sorry. The smack to my head has obviously impaired my speech patterns. Talking about the tailless lioness, Bibi, and in fact her daughter, who ended up tailless as well. Lionel, you were wondering, was she born this way, or was there another reason for the loss of her tail? And apparently she wasn't born that way, neither was her daughter. But the fact that you got two lionesses with no tails in the same pride did have me wondering if maybe there's not some kind of genetic link. It was just fascinating that it was her daughter as well. Maybe some kind of congenital weakness, but it's not unheard of that lionesses lose their tail, and apparently the tails for both of those lionesses were lost to hyenas. And of course, I suppose a bite from a hyena, a bone-crushing bite, damaging the nerves and damaging the muscles and the tendons, would eventually result in the loss of a tail, even if they didn't pull it off initially. So it was apparently in a skirmish with hyenas. That's what I have been told. Obviously, I wasn't there to witness it. But it is interesting. It's an interesting little aspect of their development of a pride, and it made them it provided something so easily identifiable about that particular lioness. And Shamel, I think. Sorry if I'm mangling your name. Shelmel? I apologize if I haven't quite got it 100% correct. Shemel, you were wondering about whether or not with Junior, you were worrying about him, hoping that he will not be at risk with all of these changes in the lion dynamics. And then we're wondering if the new daddies, the hairy belly and Matimba male, would still accept and tolerate him. Yes, probably, not 100% guaranteed. They probably wouldn't appreciate him trying to join up with the two of them. But if they encountered each other, there is a chance, because lions do recognize each other, there is a chance that he would be left alone. There is also a chance that they would not tolerate him and that they would actually chase him away, because they have been separated for so long. And it's part of a lion's natural drive for the young males to disperse away from their natal home ranges in order to at least help to counteract inbreeding. It's one of the ways in which they have evolved to try and maintain a degree of genetic diversity. So evolutionary-wise, for hairy belly and the ginger male, yes, they want to propagate their genes, and their junior is one way, or the success of junior is one way in which they could continue to do so. They also don't want competition within the natal range, and they don't want junior to be mating with his mothers. The difference is, of course, now that the Matimba males have actually been removed from Junior's natal range by the Birmingham boys. And as to what kind of an impact that would have on their relationship with Junior, it's impossible for us to know for sure. Chances are they would tolerate him, not necessarily accept him, but tolerate him at a distance, especially if Junior proved to play his cards right, as he did with the Birmingham boys. But it would be almost unheard of for him to join up and form a coalition with his fathers at that age difference. And the nice thing is, of course, although these lionesses or this lion pride could potentially come into conflict with the Nkuhuma lionesses, they are exceptionally far away. So Lynn, we are sitting in the top northwestern corner of the farthest reaches of Arathusa, the traverse area to the west of Djuma. The Nkuhumas are sitting on the far east, northeastern corner of Djuma, which puts them... Sorry. I heard whatever she heard as well. I'm just going to take my spotlight away from her for now. I don't think whatever she heard bothered her, but I just want to check. Just heard rustling. Don't know whether it was hyenas coming a searching, whether there's something else there. So Lynn, we're at a distance of about close to 8, maybe even 9 kilometers, which is in miles. My mile conversion is appalling. 5.5, 6 odd miles. That's a bit too much. 5 miles would be a rough estimate as to how far away we are. We're quite far away from Sam. We're very far away from Sam. We're as far away as we can get within our traverse area. Now she, of course, is here, whilst the rest of the pride is at Simbambili Dam to have a drink. She is here to guard the carcass. And Dave, Rebecca and myself were just having a highly amusing conversation, trying to imagine how it is determined amongst lions around a kill who gets to go and drink and who has to stay behind and guard. And my suggestion was a game of rock, paper, scissors, although how they would play rock, paper, scissors with paws, I'm uncertain. And I could just picture one of them whining about the fact that they were on guard duty for the last 2 times. And David suggested that she was just happens to be a particularly heavy sleeper, and that the rest of the pride has snuck around very softly and quietly whilst she was snoozing, and she woke up to find herself alone and on guard duty whether she wants to or not. Doesn't seem terribly put out, though, if we're completely honest, does she? Oh, Sam has got one of our other nocturnal creatures across to him. Never mind, never mind. Bush baby has jumped away and disappeared. We are still with the lioness. Sorry about that. Joys of live wildlife filming, particularly birds and bush babies, and other things that take you by surprise around corners, including branches. My eye's hurting. I'm feeling quite bitter towards that particular tree. All right, back to Sam, bush baby.
We've just found a bush baby in a tree. Have a look at that bush baby. Isn't that so sweet? We've just spotted him. We've actually seen quite a few, me and Brian. We've seen about 3 or 4 since we've left the lions. Look how beautiful this bush baby is. Oh, this is awesome. This is so cool to see this moving around. You can see the very, very red eyes, and that's what gives them away out here. You just shine your torch into the bushes and you see these magnificent looking red eyes. I just want to switch the vehicle off here. So we've been moving around following them a lot, so it looks like it's just moved off into the tree now. How awesome was that, though? That was a very cool, quick sighting of those bush babies. I'm just going to move off the road quickly because we've got a vehicle coming. Just give them space so that they can drive past us, while we potentially see if we can find a bush baby again. So it seems to be quite a few in this area. We've seen 3 in the last 10 minutes. I'll just see if I can find anything. It's so cool when you spot them. You're just driving slowly down the road, waiting for anything to appear, and next thing you know, you just see these red eyes looking at you, and then you put your torch on, and it's the sweetest looking bush baby. Awesome. Okay, so we're going to carry on, get into a position where we can maybe find us another bush baby. I know Brian has got very, very good eyes, so maybe he'll spot us a chameleon. Thanks, Jason. I think it was last time that I was with Brian when we spotted a bush baby. It was very, very exciting when we do see them. As I said, we've seen quite a few in the last few minutes, so if you stick with us just for the next 2 minutes, I bet you we can find you another one. Let's see if we can spot another bush baby lurking around this area. Maybe those red eyes won't be bush babies, maybe it'll be a leopard. So I am going to put on my 2 lights, because that'll help Brian look. Sarah, how intense were those eyes? Very, very red. And just while we do that, have a look at the moon that's starting to grow above us. So what we would have just seen is I'm going to stop so that you can view it nicely. So what we would have seen is look, you can kind of see the moon there, the shadow of the moon. Isn't that incredible? So as that opens up, that's now going to turn into a waxing moon. So waxing means the moon is getting bigger, and waning means that the moon is getting smaller. I often use the analogy of waxing my surfboard to say that the moon is getting bigger. That's one way that I do it. But isn't that just an incredible sighting? You can even see in that picture some of the craters on the moon. I have to be very still in my vehicle because I can easily move the frame. Look how incredible our moon is. Beautiful shot. Here. So, we're on the search for a bush baby. Mr. Glutes is interested to know how small a bush baby is. I'm going to use my hands to show you. Probably around that big. That's how big the bush babies are. That big. So that's probably around the size. But let's do even better. Let's find you one. Let's find you one live. That'll be cool, eh? Very cool when we find something live lurking around our bush. I can't believe how many bush babies we saw back there, Brian. We saw about 5.
Yeah.
3 or 5. There's something in that thicket there. Just caught a glimpse of red eyes down there. Just going to reverse a bit more. There was something there, whether that is a bush baby, but there was definitely red eyes. So we'll just go a little bit slower, see if we can pick up anything there. Ooh, can you see that, Brian? Ooh, I thought I saw a hyena for a second. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't. Maybe my eyes are deceiving me. Could have been anything, any of those night animals. Whatever it was, it managed to get away very, very stealthily from us. I definitely saw some very prominent red eyes. Oh well, we can only do our best to find you what we can out here in the bush. But as we go into these cold dips, so we're now coming down into a drainage line, so if you can imagine what we're feeling, it's starting to just get colder and colder as we go down. So, I've got my coat on, and I'm sure tomorrow morning is going to be a very cold morning because those clouds have left us. are now no longer blanketing that warm air in and just releasing all that warm air. So you're probably going to wake up to quite a chilly morning, which I quite enjoy. I like waking up when it's cold and having a nice cup of tea or coffee. Yes, Dottie, thank you so much for explaining what moonshine is. Moonshine is when you can kind of just see the moon. Sorry, earthshine. Earthshine. You can just see some of that moon through the shadow. That is the reflection of some of the light coming off the earth and going on to our beautiful moon. So let's actually get another picture of that earthshine. Thank you, Dottie, for erasing us and giving us that knowledge. So what you see there, the light of that moon there, is coming off the earth. So not the bright part of the moon, the other side, or the majority of that, is earthshine. I'm sure many people were not aware of that. I was not aware of that. I'd heard of it before, but I totally forgot it. So thank you, Dottie, for sharing that with us. And I'm just so enthralled by how this camera is able to pick up some of the most incredible things out here in the bush. It's really going to make things so much more exciting as we go into winter with the moons. So, today has been fantastic. I really have had a good day. From this morning with Dave and finding the leopard that was crawling through. You could see the hyena behind Karula, and then we saw Karula jump into a tree. It was very, very exciting. And then to this afternoon with Brian and his thunder jellyfish. Always an exciting friend to go out with in the bush. Them and Albus were exciting, and they helped us learn a little bit more about the Nkahula pride. And as well, the how was that sighting with all those buffaloes, and then the buffaloes noticing the lions. It's something that was the first time for me. I really enjoyed that. Otherwise, we saw a bush baby and saw a beautiful look of that moon. And we will see you tomorrow for the sunrise safari. Catch us early in the morning, our time 6 a.m. Not too sure what time it is for you. I know it's quite early in the morning. All the best, and we'll see you tomorrow.
It sounds as though Sam has had an extraordinary day, and I've had a lovely day as well, despite the odd slap in the face by a stick. Slapstick. That was slapstick comedy. I feel as though that's suitable humour for this evening. Nevertheless, truly enjoyed the time spent with the Mangeni female, a first for me. Now, apparently you have seen the Tsalala breakaway pride before. Before I started working here at Wild Earth, I just remembered that while we were sitting with her, the fact that Brent said that he had, I think it was Brent, who had seen them around Arathusa airstrip. And that was just something that came to mind. So I think I'm right about that. I think some of our regular viewers have seen them before. This is the path that they walked across to Simbambili Dam. Hopefully we're not going to find ourselves at Simbambili Dam as well. Otherwise we have definitely gone horribly wrong. But at least I know where I am now. And my kung fu is stronger than yours, and I'm not making a statement. That was the name of the person who sent you the question. My kung fu is stranger than yours, stronger than yours, not stranger than yours. Has suggested that perhaps I might need safety goggles. I think we all do. Between James's flies in his eyes, Dave, you've rescued him before from flies in your eyes. Dave's rescued me as well, actually, from having flies in my eyes. Perhaps some safety goggles would not be such a terrible idea. We would look rather silly though, and I think probably our spotting ability would be somewhat diminished by the presence of safety goggles. So for now, and for you across the world, we shall risk it. We shall take that risk upon us and prove ourselves up to the task. Cecilia, you've said that I've been asking for impala impressions, but that yours sounds more like flatulence than anything else. I said that mine sounded like a strangled goose and that Dave's was not much better, but I did promise you I'd try. So I'll give it a go. It sort of sounds something like this. No, that sounds like a leopard. No, you see, I can't do it. I'm useless. I'm appalling. Maybe a baboon was more of a good impression. So I'm sorry, my impala rutting impression just simply not up to scratch. I'll have to try harder next time. Maybe practice in front of a mirror in time for the sunrise safari. That is not going to happen. Thank you, Dave, for all of your fantastic camera work and your non-contribution to the impala rutting sounds. Thank you to Louise and to Kirsty in Final Control. And most importantly, thank you to all of you across the globe for your questions, comments, and participation in what is one of the largest safari vehicles on Earth. So wherever you are in the world, whether you are in Northern Hemisphere or Southern Hemisphere, have a wonderful day. We'll catch you tomorrow morning for the sunrise safari. Cheers, guys.